Update on the massacre at Deir ez-Zor. This is SkyWatch TV for Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. I'm Derek Gilbert. Backtracking just a little bit on yesterday's story, we reported what we'd seen from multiple sources, that the Islamic State had killed 280 people and abducted as many as 400 more from the eastern Syrian city of Deir ez-Zor. Those numbers may be high. The Telegraph, a major daily paper in London, is quoting activists and independent news sources on the ground in Deir ez-Zor as saying that the number of dead in Saturday's attack by the Islamic State was only 18, and that the group abducted several families, considerably less than 400. Now, regardless of whose numbers are correct, it doesn't change the fact that the Islamic State is pursuing a murderous, apocalyptic agenda, working toward a climactic battle with the forces of Christendom at Dabiq, the town north of Aleppo that we've mentioned before. They believe that will bring Jesus, or what they think is Jesus, back to earth along with the Mahdi, and then lead them to glorious global jihad. Now, so far, according to a new United Nations report, the Islamic State has enslaved about 3,500 people in Iraq, mainly Yazidi, although some other minorities are included, and as many as 900 of those are children taken from the town of Mosul for indoctrination, religious indoctrination, and military training. The UN also puts the civilian death toll in Iraq alone over the last 21 months at 19,000. A quick update on those American contractors who went missing in Baghdad over the weekend. U.S. government and Iraqi intelligence sources say that the two men and a woman, were taken by Iran-backed Shiite militia. We had suggested that yesterday, but they do not believe that the nation of Iran is involved or that they are being held in Iran. However, it has emerged that those U.S. sailors detained by Iran last week were held at gunpoint for 15 hours. The Defense Department also disclosed that there was a verbal exchange, whatever that means, between the sailors and their captors. This seems to contradict an early report by Secretary of State Kerry that the sailors were treated well and with respect. The Legal and Policy Director of Human Rights Watch says it's been long acknowledged by nations around the world that it's unlawful for governments to use photographs or videos of military detainees for propaganda. NATO's involvement in taking down Libya's former president Muammar Gaddafi was all about the oil and the gold. Declassified email released from Hillary Clinton's private server on New Year's Eve, while we were all distracted, reveals that French President Nicolas Sarkozy was concerned that Libya's president was about to create a new golden currency, the gold dinar, a pan-African currency that would be used across the continent, giving the Francophone nations, many of them former French colonies, you can see them in the colored map here, an alternative to the French franc, or the euro, or the US dollar for that matter. This would weaken French influence in Africa, which was concerning to Sarkozy. Now, this email, which was sent to Hillary Clinton by longtime Clinton advisor Sidney Blumenthal, also reported that Sarkozy wanted a bigger share of Libyan oil and to improve his political standing at home by demonstrating the power of the French military. Well, we are now 4 years on. Libya is a failed state with competing governments, the Libyan Dawn, which is an Islamist government based in Tripoli, the capital, and the internationally recognized government in Tobruk. And then there's an offshoot of the Islamic State, which is trying to get control of Libya's oil fields and the coastal oil terminals. So it appears that the West will go to war in Libya again in 2016. There are reports out there that the British Special Forces, SAS troops, are on the ground in Libya now, preparing the way for an invasion force of about 6,000 Western troops, American and European, led by Italian forces and supported mainly by the British and French. Although Monday, Germany's defense minister rather, said that his nation may also participate in this invasion. Now, there are many questions about how the West will proceed here and how the country that NATO broke can be put together again. Meanwhile, at home, France has its own troubles. President François Hollande declared a state of economic and social emergency Monday. Hollande's socialist government has failed to pull France's economy out of its doldrums. The unemployment there has been running at about 10% for quite some time. Hollande announced a 10 billion euro program, a plan to incentivize hiring and offer bonuses to small business. The main purpose here, it seems to this observer, is to save one job in particular with this jobs plan, and that would be Mr. Hollande's. He's running for re-election in 2017. Across the channel, Britain's anti-European Union political party, the UK Independence Party, is fuming. The UKIP's defense spokesman, Mike Hookham, submitted a question in writing to the European Commission recently regarding the safety of British truck drivers in France. Asylum seekers in Calais and other French port cities have been getting increasingly aggressive in their attempts to cross over into England. So Hookham's question, and I quote, "Given that the Dublin Agreement prohibits countries from refusing asylum claims if they've been granted by another member state, and given that the vast majority, if not all of the migrants trying to make their way illegally into the UK are using increasingly desperate and violent measures, including threatening lorry drivers, truck drivers for us Americans, with violent measures, what does the Commission propose to do to alleviate the situation, and will it rule out any changes to the Schengen Agreement and the Dublin Agreement?" Now, the Schengen zone is an area in Europe in which countries don't require passports to cross from one nation into another. So basically, an asylum seeker in Europe just needs to get into one of the countries in the Schengen zone, and then they get a free pass all the way to the coast. And because both France and England are part of the Dublin Agreement, in which an asylum seeker who's granted asylum in one country has to be accepted in another, there's a problem there. The UK doesn't want any more, but those waiting at Calais and other French ports are getting impatient. Well, the European Parliament replied to Mr. Hookham's question by telling him to withdraw or rephrase his question because it might be considered offensive. In other words, the globalists are telling the UKIP, shut up, sit down, and no more of this nationalist nonsense out of you. In other economic news, by the way, the glut of oil on the world market has actually led to negative oil prices here in the U.S., briefly. The benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude on Tuesday fell below $28.50 a barrel, but that is so low that some low-grade, high-sulfur crude in the United States actually is selling now for as little as $1.50 a barrel. And earlier this week, one particular grade, North Dakota Sour, was trading at minus 50 cents a barrel. You see, there's so much oil out there that refineries don't want to mess with the high sulfur stuff. It's harder and more expensive to process. But again, just an indication that while it's great for us trying to fill up our gas tanks, it means that there are a lot of folks who are, well, no longer have a job to drive to. This is causing a major problem in Canada, where the province of Alberta depends heavily on the oil industry there, particularly around Calgary and Fort McMurray. A third of Alberta's revenue comes from the oil patch. And with the downturn in the price of oil, revenues have declined, unemployment has spiked, and with it there is rising property crime, suicide rates, and food bank use in Alberta. At the same time, the value of the Canadian dollar, the loonie, has taken a dive. It's at its lowest level against the US dollar in 13 years. And because Canada imports most of its fruit and vegetables, food prices have gone through the roof. And Canadian consumers have taken to Twitter to post pictures of some of the ridiculously high prices they are paying at the grocery stores. Now, the dilemma for the Canadian government is this. The drop in the price of oil is somewhat offset by the weak Canadian dollar. It makes their oil more attractive on the export market. Oil production costs are calculated in Canadian dollars, but they're sold in US dollars. So, letting the loonie drop makes their oil exports more attractive. It keeps the oil producers in the black, keeps people employed, but you get $8 cauliflower. Puerto Rico, at the same time, also on the verge of economic collapse. The U.S. territory practically out of cash. It's defaulted on loan payments twice and has large bond payments due in May and June. No idea yet whether they can make those payments. The island becoming an issue in the 2016 American presidential campaign. Bottom line here is pray, cut your expenses any way you can, save, prepare, and get out of debt if possible. This 2016 is shaping up so far to be a pretty rough ride. And one final story, yet another declaration by an Orthodox rabbi that the Messiah's arrival is imminent. Rabbi Baruch Abu Hatziera, called the Baba Baruch, recently said that the time of Ishmael's rule over Israel is at an end. Now, this is based on the Zohar, which is Judaism's mystical text. It's really the foundational text for Kabbalah. Tom Horn references it in his book, Zenith 2016. Not because we believe the Zohar, but because to understand what people do, you have to understand what they believe. In the 2nd century, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who is credited with writing the Zohar, said that the ministering angel for Ishmael, the son of Abraham by his concubine, or Sarah's concubine, or Sarah's maidservant, Hagar, presented himself to Yahweh, God, and asked for a blessing for Ishmael, said that anyone who does a mitzvah, a good deed, is entitled to a reward. And so Yahweh granted Ishmael a reward because the angel said, look, he was circumcised at the age of 13, not even 8 days. Of course, Genesis 17, verses 23 through 26 tell us that Abraham and all of the men in the family were circumcised at the same time. Ishmael, 13 years old. So God granted the descendants of Ishmael 100 years of rule over Israel for each year of Ishmael's life up to the time of his circumcision. So, 1,300 years from the time of the Muslim conquest of the Levant, which was in the 7th century, puts you to about the 1930s. Now, you could say that the prophecy was off by just a little bit. We're already 80 years past that. But Rabbi Baruch said, now is the time for the nation of Israel to rule in their land. It is the time for the Messiah and the redemption when Israel will rule over all of the land. Not this part belonging to him and this part belonging to us. With God's blessing, we will merit seeing this with our own eyes, the arrival of the Messiah who will subdue them and send them out from our land. End quote. They're looking for the wrong man. But like I said, it helps to understand what they believe. Now, we talked about the Abrahamic covenant last night with New York Times bestselling author Joel Richardson. His latest book, When a Jew Rules the World, talks about replacement theology, the Abrahamic covenant, and why those issues are important for us Christians today. If you missed the program on the Christian Television Network, you can see it now on the SkyWatch TV channel on Roku. If you don't have us added to your Roku account yet, what's stopping you? Get that box, log on to skywatchtv.com/Roku for instructions, and add the channel to your account, and then you can watch that and these daily updates on demand. During the month of January, your financial support to us gets you this gift in return, the Miracles Journal, so you can chronicle your journey through this year, remembering the things that God has done in your life, and this very stylish wooden bookmark to help you track where you are in your daily devotions. That's our gift to you for your gift of any amount during the month of January while supplies last. Instructions on how to donate posted at skywatchtv.com. And you can help us with just a click of the mouse. You'll find Skywatch on TV online, our website, our YouTube channel, and of course our Twitter and Facebook feeds. Clicking like and share will spread the message around, and this is where I post my stuff on the internet, Twitter, Facebook, and my website. Now, in case you're wondering about the outfit today, let's just say that winter has finally arrived in the Ozarks. We're in a big building that's possible to heat all of it, so not complaining. I spent 17 years in the steel business working as a salesman, and it was the guys in the warehouse, the guy in the pipe yard, and the guys in the metal shops working in all kinds of weather. They had it tough, so trust me, I'm not complaining. But along with winter here in the Ozarks has arrived Josh Peck. He and his wife, Christina, and their family have made it here safely. We thank you for your prayers in that regard, and you'll be seeing Josh and Christina both on Skywatch TV in the very near future. In the meanwhile, if you have questions or comments for me, send those to dgilbert@skywatchtv.com, and thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV.